Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. So we have the Dlink Dir-867. This is a gigabit router that sells in Canada between $109 and $140, depending on where you buy it from. Anyway, so we've got 4 Ethernet ports on the back that are gigabit. We've got 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi at a speed of 450 plus megabits per second and 5 gigahertz at 1300 megabits per second, or up to. And of course, you know how it goes. It's up to, which means you're not necessarily going to see those speeds. You might, or you might not, type of thing, right? But up to is just that. In the most ideal of conditions, yep, you could reach those speeds, but don't count on it because it never actually really happens in the real world. But that's the way she goes. So we got this one used at Value Village the other day for 20 bucks. And it's a real good idea that if you shop at Value Village, especially for electronics, check the stuff out. They always have a power station somewhere in the store you can plug stuff into. Now, of course, with a router, it's a little difficult. Basically, turn it on. If you leave this thing sit for a couple of minutes, you'll notice the color status light changing for the power light, and you should get either one or both of the Wi-Fi lights to light up. The Ethernet won't, of course, because there's nothing plugged into it. You need a computer hooked into the line for that. However, that being said, our internet service is now up to 5 times faster than it was. Mainly because we know what kind of service we have, we know what we're paying for, but we weren't getting like anywhere near that speed that we should be. When you think about it, I mean, you know, even with our Belkin router, it's 300 megabits per second. We can't even get that, but the reason for that is simply because, you know, the new Macintosh computers are pre-set at the factory at 10100, but you can switch them to 10100 or gigabit, but you can't access the gigabit under the new Mac OS unless you actually have not only a gigabit cable on there that's capable, but that's not enough. We already have the gigabit cable, we have a router, but we were missing the router side that's 1 gigabit. The computer doesn't see a 1 gigabit connection capable, it won't allow you to switch. So that's just kind of the way it goes. But before and after speed testing was like, oh my gosh, wow, what we were losing out on, you know. But it's kind of, on the other hand, we knew we were losing out anyways, but by that much, wow, that was incredible. Worth every bit of $20 for a used router that's working perfect. And of course, we have extended range antenna system on this thing. There's like 4 different antennas. And yep, so we do have a lot of extended range, which works perfect. Now, my Mac Mini is on Ethernet only in my room. I was having some issues, at least under Monterey, on my Mac for connection to Wi-Fi. It was dropping in and out at times. And I thought, well, they'll fix it. It's probably an update. Sure enough, Ventura comes out. It's absolutely glitch-free. Wife wasn't having any problems, only because she's in the same room as the router, and she's like not even 10 feet from the router. So for her, it was never an issue, even under Monterey. But for me, being in the other room and all the electronics in my room, the guitars and the interference that way, yeah, kind of became a bit of a problem. But now, no more issue. But that doesn't convince me to go to Wi-Fi, because the Ethernet port is still faster than the Wi-Fi is. So, but the Wi-Fi definitely got a massive boost as well. Regardless of it being on my PC, my older iMac I have, and of course my current Mac M1 Mini, that thing is just night and day difference now. But it took having to have a gigabit router. That's all there was to it. See, if you have a service that's coming into your home that's over 100 megabits per second, the only way you're going to see that is if you can switch the bus on your computer to go to the higher bus line. And on Mac systems, for sure, it's a manual switchover. You've got to switch from 10100 to a gigabit. So even if you don't have a gigabit service, if you want to see that over 100, you have to actually have the ability to switch to the gigabit, and it won't let you do that unless it sees a gigabit router, at least not on the newer Mac OSs. On the old ones like High Sierra, it's not an issue. You could switch to any speed that's in the list, you're fine. But for some reason, Apple gave us a lockout, at least on Ventura, because that I can verify. Ventura locks you out unless it sees a gigabit router with gigabit line. So you could still have a gigabit router, but if you don't have a line capable of the gigabit signal, that can also stop you from switching your Mac over to gigabit, which also means you're still going to lose a lot of your speed. So pretty much everybody nowadays definitely has, you know, a lot more than 100 megabits per second coming in. Unless you're on, you know, a really sluggy internet service, or you're paying for a really cheap package, in which case you don't have to worry. However, as far as the router goes, I've seen some pretty decent reviews on it, and I've run D-Link products for decades. I've never had one go bad, but there was a bad one actually that was D-Link with the 3 antennas on it. It would just turn on and cycle and turn off and turn back on all by itself. And I was like, okay, somebody definitely killed this router, probably a lightning bolt, because otherwise I've never seen one fail myself. But anyway, as far as this router goes, for bang for the buck, I would definitely highly recommend it. It's definitely great. The cable I would recommend for Ethernet usage would be Cat 6, because you're going to need that to carry the signal properly and with enough strength. One thing I can definitely appreciate for Ethernet systems nowadays compared to, you know, 20 years ago is we can get a lot more cable length now before requiring a switch, which is quite nice. You know, but I don't have to use more than 25 footers, so I'm okay. But yeah, so I would say if you're looking to increase your incoming signal to where it's supposed to be, that you're paying for, I would look into a gigabit router, and this would be one of them that I would recommend for sure. And get that Cat 6 cable going, and then make sure your computer, if you're a Mac user, definitely you're going to have to manually switch this. If you're a Windows user, you may have to make some little tweaks under the configuration to get everything to go properly, but otherwise you should be fine. It should just automatically accept and go. There's always, good points and bad points to different operating systems. You know, pluses and minuses to them. Run Windows, be a rocket scientist. Run a Mac, you don't have to hardly know anything. They're pretty straightforward, which means a lot less stress too. But I have both to play with, so I did have to do some tweaking even on my PC when I tried using the Ethernet on it. I have already pre-tweaked it. Since my last video where we talked about routers and speeds and stuff, I have done some tweaking to mine on the Ethernet, but at least on the Wi-Fi it's kind of like take your pick. You know, what's the signal that you want, configure it, and away you go. Yeah, I definitely think that this is a great buy. I would recommend if you are going to be on the Wi-Fi, and as long as you're within reasonable range. I mean, you're going to find out for sure within your own household what the range is like indoors, going through different walls. But 5 gigahertz is going to give you your optimal speed, where 2.4 gigahertz gives you a lot less speed, but it does give you more range. Okay, so you're going to have to kind of pick your battle on that one. In my case, even through the wall and stuff, I'm only, like, for Wi-Fi wise, I'm about just over 20 feet from the router, from my studio. So for me, I'm okay with the 5 gigahertz. And so anything I have on Wi-Fi in there works absolutely flawless. I have no issues, and I'm getting top performing speeds out of my connection. And like I said, my Mac Mini is running off an Ethernet port on the back, and it's fantastic. I've also piggybacked our last hub, router. It's a Belkin router. I've actually piggybacked that off one of the ports on this thing so I could run my old 2009 iMac, because this thing has WPA 2 and 3 as a combo selection, or 3 only. And for proper security, I guess for some reason on the gigabit line going to the gigabit range, it wants tighter security for the Wi-Fi stuff, so we have to go WPA3, which means my older Macs will no longer connect to this particular router. It won't connect at all to this router because of it also creates weak security for all the systems. So we switched it to WPA3, so all those errors are gone. And then I piggybacked the Belkin router because it's WPA2 only, which is another thing to consider. And that security is pretty much, well, it's there, but it's kind of not as secure as 3 is. But you make up your own password and you can make it as secure as you want and be rock solid. However, there's something about the WPA setups that the older Macs will only accept on their Wi-Fi cards WPA2. They won't go any higher. So the newer the Mac you have, the better chances you are at WPA3 encryption. For Wi-Fi, Ethernet doesn't need anything, so who cares? Just plug it in and do your thing and you're off to the races. So anyways, it's a little bit extra for you. Now, as far as the price goes, I think as far as brand new price goes, I think this is worth every penny of it, of $109 to $140. I think it's well priced within that range area for Canadian dollars. I paid $20, so I'm not going to sneeze at it. I got to keep my eyes out though for more gigabit routers just to have backups, because you never know when a piece of electronics is going to die, and if you can get these things for, we've been paying $6, $10, $20 tops. For any routers we have collected, and they come as emergency backups. So even your old router, don't throw it out. Just keep it in a drawer somewhere, or if you do have an older PC or Mac in the house that can only do WPA2, then you can piggyback your old router off the new one, off one of its ports, and you can still have those devices on Wi-Fi without any issues. There you go. So that's what I've got for you. I'm willing to give this thing a really great 4.5 out of 5. And I think it definitely deserves a 4.5 out of 5. I'd love to give it even more, but ain't nothing out there in the world that's perfect, that's for darn sure. But yeah, I can't fault the router for not connecting to my older Mac on the WPA3. That's the Mac that's the issue. Yeah, definitely a fantastic router, fantastic price. I recommend anything from D-Link. No problems with D-Link products in this house. We've never had a problem for decades with anything D-Link, so that to me I think speaks volumes. But there you go. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll definitely have to catch you on the next one. Ciao.